11. Hello? A voice calls out from somewhere in the distance, seducing me away from the clutches of death. My eyelids twitch open, but everything in my range of vision is fuzzy, and the light hanging over my face is too bright, making it impossible to see anything. Can you hear me? My eyes squeeze shut as a surge of panic courses through my body, weighing down my limbs. This is all too similar, too reminiscent of my first conscious moments at the DSD. Even the fear gripping me is exactly the same. A cry sticks in the back of my throat. I don't want this. I just want to go home. Do I, though? My mother's face drifts to the forefront of my thoughts, her gaze cold and unfeeling, reminding me of her betrayal and of how easily she gave me up, as if I meant nothing to her. No, home is no longer an option. She's awake. I peek open my eyes again, drawn to the voice filtering into my ears. A woman's voice. It's familiar, I realize. I anticipate the searing blindness of the light recoiling a little, but the harsh glare doesn't burn as badly this time. My eyelids flick open and closed several times, until the bleary fog hindering my vision clears enough for me to glimpse the young woman leaning over me. She looks to be in her early 20s and is tall and lean, with light brown skin and shining brunette hair that hangs down her back in a perfectly straight glossy curtain. Large dark eyes gaze back into mine, beaming with a kindness that's alien to me. Relief smooths out her worried expression, her lips curving into a smile as she exhales a strained breath. My stomach turns when the sound of her sigh is overshadowed by the low tramp of footsteps. I blink again against the blinding light as another figure steps into view, but all I can make out is a black silhouette. As the room around me fully comes into focus, I'm able to see the face of the person staring down at me with disdain and distrust. I'm able to see Ezra Laramie. "It's time to talk," he says, his tone curt. I wedge my elbows behind me to push myself up into a less vulnerable position, but everything hurts, and my attempts to sit up end in failure. Grimacing, I collapse back against the mattress beneath me, which smells strongly of mildew and sweat. The woman lurches forward and takes hold of my shoulders, earning a sidelong glare from Ezra. "Careful, you're still weak," she murmurs. The room spins as she helps me upright and props me into a sitting position against the cool concrete wall. The cot I'm sitting on is wedged into one corner of what looks to be a small storage space. A sharp pain stabs behind my right eye and spreads across the side of my face, traveling up into my hairline where it fades to an irritating prickle. I press the heel of my hand against my temple, but this does little to ease my dizziness or the lingering ache in my head. I wince. "What happened? Where am I?" Ezra lets out a laugh that sounds more like a growl. "Someplace where no one will find you." My trembling fingers comb through my hair as I try to recount the events from before I woke up here. "What zone am I in?" I press, glancing around the small space. How did I get here?" The woman takes hold of my hand and brushes over my skin in soothing strokes with her thumb. "You blacked out from blood loss in a bar in Zone 7. If it wasn't for Ezra, you would be dead." She speaks slowly, keeping her tone calm and every word level. "That was 7 days ago. You got pretty sick and were in and out of consciousness for a while. Do you remember any of that?" My wrist throbs as if in response to her words, and I peer down at my arm, trying to piece together memories that seem reluctant to surface. I remember finding Ezra at the Vega, but our conversation after is a bit of a blur. All I can recall, with clarity, is his face in the middle of so much darkness. I swallow. Could what she said be true? Did Ezra really save my life? My lips part to speak when a bang makes me jump, sending my racing heart up into my throat. Ezra and the woman both turn toward the door, which swings open, creaking on rusty hinges. A tall man with messy black hair and shining blue eyes, who looks to be more or less my age, stands in the doorway, watching me with interest. His lips twist with the slightest trace of a grin. "Is that her?" he asks, cocking a mischievous eyebrow. Scowling, Ezra crosses his arms. "Hey, I thought I told you to stay out of this." "And miss all the excitement?" Rolling his eyes, the newcomer steps into the cramped room and kicks the metal door shut behind him with his boot. Shoving his hands into his pockets, he ambles closer, stopping a foot away from the cot. Up close, I can see just how blue his eyes are. She's pretty cute for a spy." He tilts his head, giving me a once-over. "I'm not a spy," I grumble, frowning. A slight movement draws my gaze over to Ezra, who holds up Dr. Richter's white coat. "Then why did you have this?" he asks. "They don't just hand these coats out to anyone." My mouth is a desert as I force out the words. "It's complicated." They escape in a whisper. Ezra drops the coat onto the mattress beside me. "Okay, then how do you know my name?" "When I asked you this question before, all you said was, 'I saw you.' What did you mean by that?" I said that? I can practically feel the color drain from my face, and I hesitate, unsure what to say. I can't tell him the truth. The skeptical look in his eyes is the only indicator I need to know he'll never believe me. None of them will. Not without seeing what I can do for themselves. That's also complicated. His upper lip curls back into a sneer as he takes a step toward me, reaching for the gun on his belt. The woman steps between us to defuse the situation, throwing up her hands. "Look," she says to me over her shoulder, keeping the bulk of her attention on Ezra. "We want to believe you, but you need to help us out a little. Just tell us something. Please." Her eyes dart to mine again, their chocolate depths pleading. She wants to help. I can tell as much by the subtle nod she gives me. But I'm so used to not trusting anyone that I'm reluctant to try doing so now. Trust is a luxury no one in the state can afford. Plus, the last person I placed my trust in handed me over to a sadistic monster to be tortured. She's not my mother, I remind myself. Besides, it's not like I have much choice in the matter. If I don't tell them what they want to know, they might kill me, and if I do, well, they may still kill me. Both options are equally risky. I suppose I could try to escape, but all that's waiting for me is the DSD, and no way in hell am I ever going back there. I risk another glance at Ezra before looking down at my hands. What was the point of escaping Dr. Richter, of cutting the chip from my arm, of any of this, if I don't get the answers I came for? I've found Ezra, like I set out to do, but I should have known that wouldn't be enough. He doesn't trust me. To him, I'm the enemy. That won't change, and he won't give me anything unless I give him something first. My name is Wynter Reeves. I falter when the realization strikes me. I don't know how long it's been. How much time has passed since the day of my placement exam? It feels like years since I walked into WP headquarters for the final time. "Since what?" the woman asks, her warm hand still wrapped around mine. I meet her expectant gaze and let out a breath. "Since I was taken by the DSD." "Come again?" The black-haired man gapes at me, and Ezra shoots him a death glare, snapping his name like a curse word. "Jenner." The other man, Jenner, pulls a face behind Ezra's back, mocking his stern expression. If Ezra notices, he doesn't bother to comment. I glance between them, then look up at the ceiling, fixating my attention on the fluorescent strip lighting, even as it burns into my retinas. I was taken following my placement exam. By the time I got home, the enforcers were already there waiting for me.
What did they want with you?
Ezra presses. My cheeks flush. I didn't complete the exam. I admit, hanging my head in shame. I panicked and submitted it only half finished. That doesn't make sense, the woman says. The DSD doesn't deal with minor crimes. That would be a detention sentence at worst. Is blowing off your exam even considered a punishable offense? Jenner questions. I thought you only had to get sent for re-education if you fail. That's not why I was apprehended. I interrupt, my patience with this topic wearing thin. How many times have I been forced to think about that day, to relive exactly why I was taken? All three sets of eyes looking at me narrow in confusion, but no one says a word. The shadow of curiosity crossing Ezra's face urges me to continue. Sweat breaks out across the back of my neck. Something happened during my exam, having to do with this rare condition I have. I didn't even know about it until someone at the DSD told me I have it. This guy named Richter. He's a doctor of sorts. Ezra and the woman exchange stunned glances. Richter? She gasps. Are you sure? When I nod, Ezra asks, did you happen to catch his first name? No. My hand reaches for the white coat beside me, my thumb grazing over the blood-stained left sleeve. But this belonged to him. I took it to disguise myself just before I escaped. You escaped? Jenner scoffs, giving me a dubious look. That's impossible. No one escapes the DSD. An unsettled feeling weighs like lead in my bones. Because he's right. It is impossible. No one escapes. Dr. Richter thinks I can find something the DSD is looking for. They could have stopped me at any time, but they didn't. All that security, and they just let me walk out the front door. Trust me, this isn't the first time I've questioned what happened, which makes me think they had an ulterior motive. They probably figured if they let me go, I'd eventually lead them to what they want. You mean us, the woman guesses. Ezra reaches for the gun at his hip again, but then, at the last second, seems to change his mind. Crossing his arms, he examines my face with a level of scrutiny that tells me he's searching for any holes in my story. He's looking for a lie. If only I was lying, then that would mean the horrors I went through at the DSD weren't real. It would mean this is all just a terrible nightmare. Is that why you cut out your tracking chip? Ezra asks after a moment. My eyes burn, and I can't find the strength to hold back the tears that now begin to stream down my cheeks. I can't go back there. I can't let them find me again. I did what I had to do to escape him. A strange expression twists Ezra's face at these words. It could almost be pity, or even regret. But just as quickly as it appears, it dissolves, and all I find in its place is a mask of stone. Is that why you came to us? What about your family? The woman asks, her tone soothing. If only I had family to go to, someone who would protect me from everything that's happened, or at the very least attempt to, assuming protection from the state is possible. Too bad I don't have anyone like that. I thought I did, but my mother was the one who gave me up to the DSD. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have a family anymore. Wait a minute, Jenner says. Am I the only one who feels like I'm missing something? I get why you would come to us for help, what with us being awesome outcasts of society and all, but, and I mean this with the utmost respect, how the hell did you even find us? Another question rings loud in the silence that follows. One none of them are daring to ask, probably out of fear of what it would mean. How did the DSD know I could find them? Images of the Vega manifest in my head, memories from the first time I saw it. In a vision in my cell at the DSD. How do I explain that to them? I had never heard of my condition until Dr. Richter made me aware of it. And even then, I didn't believe him at first. Chances are, no one in Phoenix would have heard of it either. To them, the truth will just seem like a lie. A crazy story to get around telling them exactly how I found the Vega, how I found Ezra. The seconds tick by, the silence pressuring me for an answer I have no way to give. That's difficult to explain, I mutter weakly when nothing else comes to me.
Try,
Ezra warns, his voice a threatening rumble. My eyes cut to his. You wouldn't believe me if I did.
Oh yeah? Why's that?
I curl my fingers into tight fists as a ringing sound vibrates through my skull, making me dizzy. My fingernails dig half-moons into my palms. I didn't find you using conventional methods. Jenner's eyes flick between me and Ezra, his dark brows dragging down into a V.
What does that mean? Like you used a sniffer dog to find us or something? Wait, maybe you are the sniffer dog?
The woman shakes her head, frowning at Jenner, before shifting her focus to me. Most people don't know about Phoenix's affiliation with the Vega. We're just trying to figure out how you did, so we can make sure our people are safe. You said yourself that the DSD is somehow using you to find out our location. I'm sure you can understand how this might look from our point of view. I do. I breathe, my voice hitching. And I promise I didn't come here to cause problems for any of you. It's just how I found you. Well, it's the sort of thing you'd have to see to believe.
Then show us.
The demand escaping Ezra's lips is ice cold, yet I can sense a tremble of fear in his tone. On the surface, it reminds me of my mother's final words the last time I saw her, before I woke up at the DSD, before she handed me over to Dr. Richter, before my life turned into a nightmare. But beyond that, the fear in his voice reminds me of how I've felt every single day the last 11 years. The fear in his voice reminds me of loss. I can't, I begin to say, but I barely get the words out before Ezra unholsters his gun. Show us! He steps forward and jabs the metal barrel into my temple, but I don't recoil, unfazed by his threat. Something about what I've said has upset him. That much is clear, although I struggle to understand what. Regardless, I suspect he won't pull the trigger, despite the crazed look in his eyes. I've witnessed another side of him that surpasses his distrust and anger. The side portrayed by the man in my vision. The memory of that man, of his words and his tears, is the one reason I have to believe he won't hurt me. If that side of him didn't already exist, he wouldn't have bothered saving my life at the Vega. I would be dead. The future I saw would be changed, and Dr. Richter would have been right to warn me about him. But he wasn't. I know in my gut that he wasn't. I stare up at Ezra, unwavering as the room around us explodes into chaos. Ezra! The woman shrieks, grabbing his arm. Hey man, put the gun down, Jenner pleads. Ezra's upper lip peels back into a snarl, but he relents after a moment, clipping his gun back onto his belt. Scowling, he turns and storms from the room, the door slamming into the wall as he throws it open with way more force than necessary. Just before stepping into the corridor, he pauses long enough to say, "She doesn't leave this room." He then trudges off without looking back. The woman exchanges a long look with Jenner as the echo of Ezra's tromping footsteps gradually fades, leaving the three of us in an uneasy silence. He glances between us, then lets out a loud groan. "I'll go talk him down," he grumbles. The woman nods and we both watch as Jenner slumps his shoulders and heads for the open door, muttering something under his breath that involves a few choice curse words, and something about being on babysitter duty. Once we're alone, she sits down beside me, unsettling the springy mattress. I'm sorry about Ezra. She trails off, biting down on her lip. He has a lot on his mind. She finishes lamely, following the words with a sigh. She clamps her hands together, her posture rigid, as if there's something on her mind and she's reluctant to say it. Finally, she asks, "That doctor you mentioned, what did you think of him? Was he a good man?" I blink up at her, bemused by her question. A good man? I suppress a laugh at the thought. Good is the last word I would use to describe him. No, I answer, my tone as sharp and cutting as the glass shard that sliced through my wrist. But I don't think anyone in that place is good. Her face drops and a wave of guilt washes over me. I don't understand her reaction. Why does she seem so sad? What does she have to do with Dr. Richter? She smiles at me, but behind her kind facade, I sense her disappointment. It burns in her eyes like twin flickering flames. Seeing it only makes my guilt worse. As she clears her throat, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes, a realization stirs in my chest. The words to voice it spill from my lips in a rush. You're so different from what I imagined. Phoenix, I mean. You're nothing like how the state portrays you. You don't seem like monsters. She smiles again, although this time her expression is coy, as if she's in on a secret the rest of the world doesn't know. Arching an eyebrow, she lets out a soft, tinkling laugh. That's because we're the good guys.